Welcome to a new video in my home automation series, and today I'm going to talk about how you can integrate Node-RED with Google Home or Google Assistant. With this integration, if you have devices that you are controlling from Node-RED, for example, I have light switches and also blinds and thermostats that I'm controlling from Node-RED. Well, to be honest, in my case, I am capturing these changes in Node-RED and they are actually being controlled by a PLC. So I'm sending the information to PLC using Modbus that you can see here. But regardless, if you are controlling them from Node-RED, now you can use this integration and you can also control them from Google Home. You can use Assistant on your phone, you can use any of your Google Home devices, or actually you can also use the Home app and you can see all the things here. So for example, I have all my lights and devices here and I can just turn them on from here. And actually now you can see that one of the lights that I controlled is this study light, and now it has turned on. If I turn it off, it turns off. Okay, and if you are following my channel for a long time, you can see how a thermostat looks like. And if you are following my channel from a longer time, you probably know that this is the third time I'm revisiting this, because probably about 2 years ago, I made a video about a gbridge.io. So there was a service that was built by community and that allowed Google Home integration using MQTT messages. And that was all fine. I was using that for probably about a year. I also paid for this service, but then for some reason this service got discontinued. And once this service got discontinued after a couple of months, I found Nora. And that was again another community service, and it was working fine for a couple of years. Well, I don't know, probably about a year, and then it started to become unreliable. And actually, there is a discussion on that on the on Node.RED forum that the Nora is no longer available, and I've noticed that on my setup as well. And actually, the author of Nora has responded that it was designed as sort of like an initial project, and he was expecting a couple of hundred users. But actually, this service proved to be really popular. So I think he ended up having a couple of thousand users, and basically just the service wasn't able to cope with that. But now there is a new solution that we can migrate to, and this is called the SmartNora. So in this video, I'm going to talk about this one and how I have also migrated to this SmartNora. And actually, I have to say that it is designed by the same guy who actually worked on Nora. So that's Andre. And well, first of all, thanks Andre for your contribution to Node-RED users. So what I'm going to talk about first is how you migrate from Nora to SmartNora, actually how it looks like. And that's going to be fairly easy because, well, since we are talking about the same person, it actually looks almost exactly the same. So there is a new package which is called the SmartNora, and once you install that, then you will notice that, well, it also has a Nora group, but it has the exact same nodes what we have used in Nora before. The only difference is that, well, probably not the only difference, but the old nodes were blue and these are yellow. So if you go to the palette manager, you can install SmartNora, and it's the Node-RED contrib SmartNora. It is a fairly new one, so at the moment we are on version 1.0.3, and I think 0.3 came out, well, as you can see, 24 hours ago. And I've migrated a couple of days ago and it's been working just fine. And actually, probably a little bit later, I also want to talk about why it's definitely worth migrating. Well, first of all, because the old Nora solution is not working anymore. But secondly, because it uses some functionality that will ensure that we will not solely rely on the cloud service, but it is actually something smarter. So migrating to the new Nora network or the SmartNora solution is actually simple because, well, it is going to be very similar if you have used Nora before. And actually most of the nodes work exactly the same way as they worked before. There are some new functionalities here as well. And by the way, there is a documentation how you basically install the new solution. So you first use the palette manager and install the new component. It's all mentioned here, and you get the nodes, and then you start wiring them up. There is no migration, so you pretty much have to do whatever you have done in Nora and just replicate them into the SmartNora solution. But as I said, the nodes work exactly the same way. So what I have done actually is I had all my Nora nodes here. I just moved them to the side and I replaced them with the new SmartNora nodes, and I just basically copy and pasted all the settings from one to another. So it was really, really simple. I mean, it's mostly elbow grease, but you can go through that probably in, well, depending on how many devices you have. I think I have about 60 devices, and it took me like probably 20 minutes to migrate. Or, okay, maybe half an hour to migrate from the old solution to the new one. And once you install your first node, you have to create a configuration as well. And in the configuration, you create, you specify your email and the password. And you can specify a home name as well, but that's basically it. And of course, now you also have to create an account. So you come to this site, which is called the smart-nora.eu. And then when you click on My Nora, you can go through a registration process. So you provide an email address and a password, and you create an account. And as you can see, I have created a group. So I haven't give it any name, so this is just a default group, and I have 59 devices, and these are the devices that you can see here on Node-RED. So as I said, this is how you set up. There is no migration, so you just have to copy and paste your old nodes to the new ones, and you can just basically delete the old one. So I've deleted all my old nodes, and actually I've also uninstalled the old Nora component. I wasn't planning on doing a complete tutorial or how you use these, because if you have seen Nora before, it works exactly the same way. So you have various devices, and for each of the device, when you hover over, then you see the the basic use of them. I think most of us are going to use the lights, and then in the lights, if you look at it, there is actually a lot of different functionality that you can do. So I have a very simple lights, which are just basically on-off lights. You can specify what would be the payload when it's turned on and off. I use true or false because that's what I'm passing to Modbus interface, but if you are using MQTT or any other way, probably you can just use ones and zeros. So, the on payload is, string 1 or number 1, and the off payload is 0. And just like before, if you specify a room hint here, then in your home app, the device would automatically go into that room. So it's worth to do it here, because then you don't have to do anything in a home app. It would be just set up just like that. And of course, once you start allowing extra control, for example, brightness, then or even color, then your payload is going to be different, because then you can pass those values through, and whatever comes off Nora as well will have the the color components or the light brightness component. But I don't have any of those, so I haven't enabled them. But if you look at the documentation, you can see how, if you want to have a light which can control brightness, then in the payload you pass an object which has an on attribute, which whether the light is on and off, and you also have a brightness attribute. The other common one is probably blinds, which actually I'm also using. And it is also fairly simple to use, because all you need to do is into the payload, you pass an object which has a single attribute, which is called the open %, and then you pass the number. So obviously 0 means that your blind is down, 100 means that your blind is 100% up. And of course, if you tell that in Google or the Google device, then this node is also going to send out the same message. So it's going to have an open %, and then that's going to be a number from 1 to 100. And in the Google Home app, you can't control blinds. I mean, there is no UI to control the blinds, but you can just have your assistant open a blind or close the blind, and the message is going to come through these nodes here on the output. Oh, sorry, not these, because these are my thermostats. These are my blinds. So you can see all of my blinds are up, so it just says it's 100%. And then if I tell my Google Home to open or close the blinds, then the message is going to come out on the output, what has been asked by Google Home. And well, in my particular case, I send it off to Modbus, and that's why I don't want to go into the details. But if you have a simple light, for example, this planter light is a simple Sonoff basic, which is running ESP Easy. So as you can see, I have configured this one, that the on payload is 1, the off payload is 0, and that's what ESP Easy expects. So I'm just sending that message to the planter is the name of the device, /GPIO/12, and that's the pin for the Sonoff basic relay. So it turns the relay on and off. And of course, if I turn the relay on and off, I also send that message into the planter, this node. So let's say if I turn on that Sonoff device using the button, or maybe an automation here in Node-RED, then at least I'm sending the update into Google Home. So in the Home app, I can also see that that light is turned on or turned off. And this is why I don't check this checkbox. So if a message comes into the input, I don't pass it to the output. So you do all these, and by the way, if you don't have lights, you have switches which work exactly the same as light without the brightness or the color feature. I think my garage door is a switch. No, this is the open close one. The only thing I have done here is there is a new rule in Google that if you are using garage doors or I think something else, then you have to set up a two-factor authentication. So, if you tell your Google device to open the garage door, you also have to type in a PIN. And I didn't want that, and this is why I'm not using the garage node, because that forces you for two-factor authentication. I'm just using the open-close, generic open-close device. And even here, I've specified that this is not a garage door, but it's just a generic door. So it allows me to send open or close commands, basically, true or false or 0 or 1s, and not ask for like a PIN code or two-factor authentication. And as you can see here, you can even use different commands instead of open, close, maybe up and down or in and out or left or right. Okay. And that's it. The only special thing I have done for the garage door, so the garage door opener is obviously only just gives a very simple pulse message. So what I have done is I send a message to basically, engage the relay, and after 15 milliseconds, I also send a turn off message. If you're using a device which has a pulse functionality, you don't need to do that. But in my particular setup, I had to do that. So I'm sending the on, and I'm sending a subsequent off message as well. And to be honest, the only other thing I'm using, so I don't really have any outlets or switch. I think my alarm, my pump is actually a switch. Yeah, it's a switch. So again, it just has sort of like an on-off, so just an on-off state. And that would be the same for an outlet. They just show up with the different icons on the Google Home app. That's the main difference. So the other thing I'm using is the thermostats, because I have a couple of temperature sensors around the home, and I want that to also show up in Google Home. Even though I'm not really controlling anything, you can't set a set temperature, you can't set it to cooling or like heating, but at least if I open my app, you can see there is a temperature, or there's a thermostat here. You can see I can't do anything with it, but at least I can see that the indoor temperature is 23.5 here. So if you want to do something like that, you can do, and you can just use the thermostat node, and you can see them here. So I've configured them to use Celsius, and you can see the supported modes here. So I haven't enabled any supported mode, so you can't really do anything with it. It just shows you the temperature. And again, I specified the room hint. So that's how you set it up. And once you have set it up, then you also have to go to your Google Home app. So, or I think it's still called the Google Home app. And then you click on the plus sign, and then you select set up a new device, and you click works with Google, and then you have to find from the list the SmartNora option or the SmartNora entry, and then you have to enter your passwords that you have created here. And once you have done that, your devices that you've created here in your Node-RED flow will automatically flow into your Google Home app. And of course, anything that you create after will also be visible here. So that would be my quick rundown of how you set this up and how it is working in Node-RED. If you need any more detailed or very specific scenarios how you would do something in Node-RED with a particular light or I don't know, switch or Sonoff, then just let me know. But to be honest, I think most of it is very self-explanatory. But there is two things that I also want to talk about. One is actually called Google Local Fulfillment. And this is a new stuff that Google has created. Actually, you can watch a video about the Google Fulfillment here. Or it's also called the local execution, or if you search for local home SDK, it's pretty much the same thing. The point of this is this is something fairly recent as far as I know. Well, the Google devices can talk to smart devices directly on your home network. So in a previous setup, when you had a Google device and let's say you want to turn on a light, what happens is that you ask Google to turn on a light, and then Google goes up to the cloud and then connects to your cloud provider, and then it tells him to turn on the light, and then that message comes through and actually turns on the light, which could be like like a Sonoff or a whatever live bulb which is sitting next to the Google Home device. I think there is a animation on that one, yeah. But with the local fulfillment, what happens, again, you ask your Google just to turn on a light, and then Google can find out if that light is in the same network as him. And then it can talk to that light directly. So what is happening now is you create all these devices in Nora or in SmartNora on your Node-RED, and if your Google device is on the same network as your Node-RED, so if it's in the same Wi-Fi network at home, then the request doesn't go up to the cloud and come back, but then your Google Home device talks directly to Node-RED. And this is why I said in the beginning that it definitely worth to migrate to SmartNora or start using this service, even though that you might feel that this is just another community service that might not be here forever and might start to be unreliable, because actually with the local execution, if you are using it for voice control, it would most probably going to use local execution anyway. So even if there is any issue with the cloud service, the local execution is going to work. At least this is how I understand the local fulfillment. And actually you can see that here in my flow as well, because what Andre has done in the latest release, latest version, which is 1.0.3, is the color of the nodes will tell you whether it's using the local execution or not. So anything which is showing up as green, the messages are still going through the cloud. For example, these, you can see the status is green, but then anything is blue, it goes through local execution. So you can see that some of my lights are using local execution, like this one and this one, and my blinds are also using local execution, but most of my other stuff are using, the cloud. And the reason they are different, because at least what I noticed, that everything starts off as green initially, and first of all, it might take a couple of hours for Google to realize that I can, also control them locally. But what I have noticed that if I start using these devices, using the Google device, then they actually start turning blue. So you actually have to, ask Google to turn on, for example, the big light, and then because it's trying to talk to that device, it realized that, oh, I can use local execution as well. So then it will start, these will start turning blue, and that's what also happened. So I was testing with my light in the study, so I asked my Google device to turn on my light in the study, and from green it has turned to blue. So local execution is good. I didn't have any issues with response time in the past. This is supposed to be quicker. I think it is quicker, but it is not awfully noticeable. It wasn't really fast in the past either. I mean, of course, with Nora, in most cases it wasn't working at all, but now it is definitely working, and it's definitely working fast. So this is what I wanted to mention about the local execution. And the other one is something new in SmartNora. This is this notify thing. You see this notify node here, which wasn't there in the previous version. And that's actually something new. So you can also use Google Home to manage notifications. So I have this example here, so this notify. If I go into the properties, I can, of course, I do the configuration, and I can specify a title and a body and also an image, and I can also specify actions. So like a description, and it also has like a code. And let me just go into the debug, and let me open my phone. So let me open my phone so you can see how it is working. Of course, I don't have to be in the Google Home app. So I just trigger this one. Sometimes it comes immediately, sometimes it's a couple of seconds. And now you can see I received the new notification, and it says, medicine reminder, it's time to take your pills. And if I open it up, I have the option. So I can say, okay, remind me in 1 hour. And then again, if we go back to Node-RED, we see that we received the notification back. So, if you remember, that's the title of the message. That's the, of course, the body of the message. The icon, it is just a general link to like a JPEG or a PNG file. That also appeared in the notification. And I could see the two buttons, the dismiss and remind in 1 hour. And I selected remind in 1 hour. So the payload that I received back from the node was this one. And I mean, that's actually really, really nice. I mean, I still haven't found a use case for that, mostly because I'm doing a lot of stuff using Telegram. But if you have some needs for some notifications, and also if you want the notification to also give you some response back to Node-RED, I think this is a really good solution. I mean, it just works. You don't need any additional program to set up. If you're using Android, you most probably have Google Home installed anyway. I mean, especially if you're using Nora and the smart home integration, you have Google Home installed, and it just works. So that's really, really nice. To make this work, one thing you have to do is you have to come to that page that you use for registration, and you have to visit that page on your mobile phone. And of course, you click on My Nora, you log into with your user ID and password, and you also get this message which says, do you want to receive notification from Node-RED? And you click here, and you get this thing which says subscribe successfully. And after that, you will start receiving notification. So it works on your phone. It also works on your browser. If you do the same in the browser, you will get the message in this notification center. I find this a little bit less reliable than the phone, but the messages definitely arrive on a phone, so that's nice. And that's it. So as I said, you can specify a title, a body, an image. The tag means that if you are sending multiple notifications with the same tag, then the newer message would override the older message. So that's it. And of course, you get the response back, and you can do whatever you want with the response. That information is already in Node-RED. So that's something that I really, really like. I think I'm going to use this. Maybe I'm going to use this in conjunction with with Telegram if I need to send some sort of notifications. And I really like the response part of it. It reminds me something that I've seen for Home Assistant, where you can send a Home Assistant notification which also has some actions. So it's pretty much the same thing. And well, you don't need Home Assistant for that if you don't have it. So that's really nice one. So that would be all of what I wanted to talk about SmartNora. I'm using it for a couple of days now. All thumbs up, everything is working. I'm very happy with it, and I'm hoping that that's going to be like this for a couple of years now. And with the local fulfillment, local execution, I think it is less reliable on like a third-party cloud service than anything that we have seen before. So that's definitely a plus. You just have to start using them so your Google Home start learning the local execution path. So if you are interested in this, I'm going to leave all the links that I have shown here. Maybe I can leave the link to this discussion here on on the Node-RED discussion if you just want to read through. I also had some comments here. And also some of these wiki pages are available. So if you want to read a little bit more about it, how you install it, and then some FAQs. And of course the Nora site, the SmartNora site, where you can register. But to be honest, I think that would be all for today. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next video.